Oh boy, is it good to be back, John. We spent a week off, and it was probably the best week to spend off we could have ever done because the Mariners lost in the ALCS, the Seahawks had a bye week, and the underdogs lost basically every single matchup that they have or that they had in football. So quite the good time to take off. Any thoughts from the last couple of weeks that you want to rattle off before we just dive into this week's pod?
You called it right, man. A great week to miss, but I still missed you, so I'm glad to be here. Glad to get caught up and get back on the horse. But no, we got a lot of discussion today, kind of catching up on our homework, as it were. So let's jump into it.
Yes, sir. All right. For those of you listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening, we're live on YouTube as we're recording this. So if you ever want to catch us, we usually go live at around 4 p.m. Pacific time on YouTube. So check us out there. Other than that, guys, enjoy some Coyote Picnic. Okay, John. Let's just jump to the Mariners. I think we just get the Mariners out of the way. I think it's time we just discuss that. And with that comes our ALCS reactions, the post-mortem for this Mariners season, as it were. It was kind of tough. I think everybody thought that we were going to beat that Blue Jays team, especially you, Mr. If we go to Toronto, we shouldn't be concerned. I think that's why you really wanted to avoid the pod last week. You wanted the pitchforks to be calmed down a little bit. But yeah, give me your thoughts coming out of that series.
That was tough. That's a really tough one. I hate to make it about me. It reminded me a lot of the what would that have been? 2021 NBA Finals, where my Phoenix Suns were up 2-0 against the Milwaukee Bucks before losing in six. And just, yeah, tough games down the stretch. I know I kind of played off going back to Toronto, but, we had chances in both those games. Obviously, particularly Game 7, we had that one in hand. So I don't think it was a situation where we went back in Toronto and just completely lost our edge. And we lost 2 or 3 in Seattle. So I think that was the bigger issue. But yeah, it was a tough series, a good series. Obviously miserable that Springer was the one that did it to us. Obviously, all the Mariners fans out there bear that man a lot of ill will. But, in general, I do think the Toronto team has a lot of really likable characters. Vlad is one of my favorite players in the MLB. We talked at length about how much I wanted to get him Mariners. And yeah, again, Springer aside, I think they're a pretty likable team. And, I'm rooting for them against the Dodgers. It's everybody against LA at some point.
Yeah. I think what it comes down to is I don't really like either of those teams. Like I have not watched a single minute of the World Series, and it's mainly because like the Dodgers are a super team, which is why, like you said, everybody kind of dislikes them. And in terms of the Blue Jays, it's like, I don't know. Because we lost to them in such a fashion, it feels like I can't be rooting for them. So I'm just fully out on the World Series. It has just made me miss the day-to-day aspect of baseball that I feel like every baseball fan goes through for the last like 2 weeks after the season or for a couple weeks. And then you get into the offseason discussion and things like that, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit here as well. Just so everybody's aware, Mariners can't even talk to players until 5 days after the World Series is over. That's just like kind of the rule. So those of you that think they should sign Josh Naylor already, that's just not allowed yet. And we can kind of dive into the offseason plan here in a second. But yeah, I think coming out of that series, I was very happy with where we were, and looking forward, like, how the team has kind of embraced this season and kind of embraced Cal as like the leader and the look ahead guy for the next couple of years. Like that's the thing that I've been happy with how the Mariners handled it. Obviously we would have liked them to have make the World Series and things like that. But I think overall you can't be upset. I do like you said, I do like Vladdy. We all hate George Springer here. That's everybody knows that. But other than that, I think the Blue Jays are not a bad team to lose to, and they're holding up. They're putting up a fight against the Dodgers. It's 2-2 right now in that series. Like it is making me feel like we were playing one of the better teams in the MLB at that time. So I'm not too upset.
And everybody knew that. I mean, other than maybe the Brewers, Toronto was the best team in baseball at the All-Star break. Like they were clearly the best team in the American League. They really took their foot off the gas the last couple of months of the season, but they had like an 8 or 9 game lead in that stacked AL East for a good portion of the season. So no, it shouldn't be any surprise to anybody that they can hang with the Dodgers, particularly with Bo Bichette back. yeah, before talking a little more about the Mariners, I will just say if you're not watching this World Series, you are missing out on some really fun baseball. I can't help myself but watch it, and it's the perfect balance of one, George Springer is hurt, so I don't even have to watch his ugly ass. But I'm rooting for Toronto because I can't stand LA teams in general, and I can't stand teams that are spending 3 or 4 times the salary cap of most teams in their respective league specifically. But simultaneously, Shohei, the fact that we're getting Shohei and Victor Wembanyama both just doing crazy, just unbelievable things kind of at the same time, it's almost desensitizing. But they were throwing up some stats. What he's doing is just so unbelievable. And what he accomplished in that, what was it, 16 inning? It didn't go 18 innings, did it?
I think it was
16
18.
inning
I think it
monster?
was 18.
Yeah. Well, did it go full 18? What he did in that game was unbelievable. Whereas first, he went 4 for his first 4, and they were all extra base hits. And then they just proceeded to walk him 5 times in a row. So he got on base 9 times, but they were showing his stats up against like all these records he tied in that game, and they were all black and white pictures from dudes in like 1908. And, you know, the walks are one thing. You know, it's an 18-inning game. Should you get credit for that? But he was 4 for his first 4 through like 6 innings, and he's I guess the second player ever with 4 extra base hits in a single World Series game. That's crazy. It's not even his pitching stuff isn't even playing into this. His hitting stats are breaking records. So I can't help but watch. It's completely electric. Rooting for Toronto, being amazed by Ohtani. It's fun baseball.
I think something that goes a little bit, I guess, punished by fans who are just like really only rooting for one team and don't really get all in on the sport is like, yeah, you miss guys like Shohei. Like, I really haven't watched enough of Shohei Ohtani's at-bats to really revel in like the experience that guy brings to the table every single time he's up to the plate or pitching. And then you got guys like Victor Wembanyama, who every day that he's out there is like a blessing for basketball because that man's body will not hold up long term. Like, this man is doing he's doing things that like you would never expect a 7'5" or 6 guy to do on the basketball court, let alone like do it at a super high level for 82 games. So it's like the things that we have happening at this moment exactly is just it's something that I think we really need to kind of revel in more. And as sports fans, I haven't been doing nearly enough of it. So maybe I will watch a Dodgers game or two.
Yeah, dude, Wemby highlights are a grace from God. They're popping up on my Instagram constantly, and I just have to watch every single one. The one thing I'll say about Wemby, dude, is he's like when Zion came into the league, I knew immediately. You know, I watched him at Duke. It's like this guy will play like 2 seasons in the NBA, and then his knees are going to turn to paper mache. Like, he's just, it doesn't make any sense. Wemby, the problem is it kind of looks like it might be able to work. Like, if he breaks down, it will be the least surprising thing. Dude's like 7'6", but he kind of just looks pretty smooth out there, and he's pretty light. It's like, is there any chance this can actually work long term? We'll just have to wait and see.
That man's doing a lot of yoga. We need to get on yoga. That's what we need to do. Get back in our...
That's true. Yeah. These French guys in their yoga. That's 100% right. All right, I pulled us all the way off the subject of the Mariners. I guess last thing I wanted to say is, you know, obviously it's a bummer to go 7 games in the championship series, have a chance at the World Series, and not get there. But I do think, and it's not, you know, not necessarily a roster construction problem, but it was certainly a roster performance problem. You know, we did not hit the ball well enough in the championship series to deserve to go to the World Series. We did not. We had 3 guys hitting over 200 in that series. In the series, it was Cal hitting 381, no surprise, my love. Josh Naylor, 261, give him a bag. And shout out to J.P. Crawford stepping up and getting all the way up to 263. Every other player on this team, Randy Arozarena, Dominic Canzone, you know, we don't even have to talk about Mitch Garver, but Jorge Polanco, Mr. Clutch, who did so much for us in that series, was only batting 182. Julio and Robles were obviously really struggling as well. So it was just, I don't know how you're expecting to win that caliber of game when you just can't generate hits. We couldn't. So it's a bummer, but I do think the road ended where it should based on the way we were playing.
Yeah, I would agree. I think when you think about it like that, it's like, yeah, if you have guys hitting basically average 200 over the course of a series, the other team is just going to beat you. Like, the other team had, like, the Blue Jays had so much better hitting, and they were able to put the ball in play more. And when you put the ball in play in the World Series, like, good things are just going to happen. And whether that was guys kind of reverting back to their norms and this season really, like, kind of shrunk away from them. I know Edgar's kind of the guy who's trying to teach them all, like, hey, hit the ball away, don't get in 2-strike counts, or like shorten up when you get in 2-strike counts. And then they all kind of like reverted back to Julio chasing sliders away, like Victor Robles not ever, I guess he walked a couple times in the last couple games, but it's like really being not the most patient guy. And that's, those are the types of things, those are the types of swing decisions that make these guys struggle long term. Randy was swinging for the fence every time he walked to the plate, and it's like, dude, you're a doubles hitter. Like, just hit the ball and it's going to go far. And it was kind of frustrating to watch the team hit like that. So I would agree with you that was the main issue there. I think pitching-wise, obviously we had a few blow-up games that just things didn't go our way, those first 2 T-Mobile Park games. But in general, I think the pitching wasn't too bad. They're a really good lineup, like we've said a bunch of times. And all things considered, we were in a position to win that with 6 outs left to go in the game. And I guess one more thing we can talk about with that is the decision to put Bizzardo in against George Springer with second and third. I believe it was 1 out, and Bizzardo comes in after Kirby had let up those 2 hits in Game 7, and it's a position in the set, or not Kirby, but whoever had, because I think Kirby was out by that point, but whoever had given up those hits, Springer's coming up,
Woo.
and it was Woo. That's right. Springer's coming up. You get him in a 2-strike count, and especially with first base open, I was very okay with the decision to go with Bizzardo there, purely because it's like, if Bizzardo's able to work his way out of this, like you've got Munoz in the back if this game goes long, like this is kind of the situation that you want your basically number 2 reliever on the night to like get you through this in the 7th inning, and then you can go from there. And I was so okay with the decision. A lot of people are going to be like, oh, you should have put in Munoz, but that's hindsight 2020. Like, yeah, you should have, but if you think about it, it's like, that's too much. What they needed to do, and it was a miss by Bizzardo for sure on the pitch, but they needed to pitch him more carefully. Like, you had first base open, 2-strike count. Like, this guy is going to be protecting way more, and Bizzardo just missed his spot. Like, that's things that can happen in a baseball game, and if you expect that to never happen, then yeah, you're going to be a little disappointed sometimes. It just sucked that it was in Game 7 of the ALCS. But overall, I think it was all the decisions that were made during that process were good decisions. Like, I was happy with everything that Dan Wilson did, happy with the execution until the last pitch. So can't be too upset. George Springer made a good swing on it.
Agreed. And yeah, I think my bigger issue is not with the decision making in terms of who's pitching. I really just would have walked Springer there for a couple different reasons. One, obviously, he's a legendary postseason home run hitter, and that's what gives them the lead there. It also opens up the double play ball if you get him on first base there, and then that allows for potential, inning-ending play. Obviously, the reason you don't do it is because then you have Luke's and then Vlad coming up after, and those are the next 2 you're going to have to face. But, yeah, being in that situation that late in the game, holding on to a 2-run lead, you can't worry about someone giving up a single. You have to worry about giving up the whole. And I do think for that reason it makes more sense to walk Springer there. But, again, hindsight's 2020. He had not had a very good series up to that point. I think he just had to keep throwing pitches and hope to get away from it. Yeah, it was a bummer. But, it was also a bummer, and then there were 2 more innings. Like, it's not like we didn't have opportunities. It was 4-3 after that inning. We had 2 more really good opportunities to go out there and score a couple more runs, and the team couldn't do it. The offense was not generating. Honestly, what's so crazy, and what we're going to look back on as being so crazy, is that we won that 15-inning crazy game with our inability to generate hits playing this Blue Jays team. How did they not, take that way sooner with the way they're able to generate offense? It's funny, too. The Dodgers, obviously, 18-inning game, same thing happened. Nobody was generating hits, and the Blue Jays did not win that one.
Yep.
Those are the games the Blue Jays are built for. So just kind of funky, but I think it was a great year, an awesome year. But I don't feel a ton of regret, because the way this team was playing, I don't think they're a world championship team.
Yeah, I can agree with you on that. The Dodgers should win this. I don't think there's any question right now. I think if you had to take a 3-game series basically and give it to one of these 2 teams, it's going to be the Dodgers. So shout out to our boy Joe on Seahawk Talk. He just said, "Go Hawks." Appreciate you, brother. From here, let's jump into just a couple of discussions on the offseason for the Mariners. Obviously, everybody wants them to sign Naylor, and we probably need another outfielder, and I would expect, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would expect them to probably trade one of a Rosarino or Castillo. I think those contracts are just a little bit much for where this team is at with them. And then when you look at who they want to add, what they want to add, it's probably a corner infielder, whether it's Josh Naylor. We'll get into a couple other guys who I think are good options that I think we should get ahead of the curve on as Mariners fans. We'll get into that, but it's Josh Naylor or one of those corner infielder guys, and then an outfielder, and then maybe a starting pitcher that can kind of slot in that 5 spot, but also be a decrease in payroll to give you more flexibility going forward. And that is probably going to come with the departure of Castillo and or Randy. What are your thoughts? Just give me kind of like, does that feel like the right fit? Do we need more to focus on relief pitching instead of a starter? Like where are you at with that?
No, I think our relief pitching was really rounded into form at the end of the year and was really a bright spot for this team in the postseason, particularly. And again, Santos was an investment that hasn't done anything. Brash is who we've wanted him to be, and obviously Munoz is arguably the best closer in baseball. But yeah, Bizzardo's ascension from he's been an important part of this closing unit all year, but what he did in the postseason really elevated him to probably the second most beloved closer that we have. I should say relief arm we have behind Munoz. So I feel good about that group going forward. I think you have very accurately put your finger on the 2 contracts that are probably on the chopping block this offseason. Personally, I think Castillo has to go. Like, I love him dearly. I just don't think he makes sense with the way this roster is built and with the way that we have some young guys that, at least deserve opportunities to step into the role, in what would be the 4th or 5th spot. I think what maybe solidified the nail in Castillo's coffin was how good Bryce Miller was in the postseason, in big moments. I think his ability, he's always been kind of a theoretical value. And I think what he showed us this postseason, no, he is a literal value. He should probably be our 3rd guy behind Kirby and Logan. Oh, sorry, 4th guy and Woo. I forget how deep we are sometimes. And that it doesn't leave room for Castillo. I think Randy is a way more interesting conversation because based on what we're paying him and based on what I certainly thought when we acquired him, he has been a disappointment. I don't think there's any way around that. He has not been the value that we have been paying for. But at the same time, he has been, he's come up in big moments. He's fitted in well with the rest of the lineup. I know him and Julio are very close friends. I think he and Edgar both deserve some credit in trying to fix some of Julio's idiosyncrasies at the plate. Yeah, I think he's a good leader, and I don't think he ever gets rattled. Even sometimes he swings too hard at balls. But the argument is he's getting paid too much, and that money could go to other people. So if it means making sure we don't see somebody we love walk out the door, I think Randy is somebody to look at. But I do think there's a world where we can lose Castillo, bring back who we want to bring back, and not lose Arozarena.
Yeah, I think you look at who this team has in the pipeline, and Castillo is much more of a favorable departure for this team. It's a question of, is Lazaro Montes, Johnny Farmelo, like these guys that are kind of on the fringe of AA in terms of like they're on the low fringe of AA, not necessarily ready for the major league level at any point. And then you look at a guy, our first draft pick from last year, Cade Anderson, who's like basically ready to go at the MLB level, just needs a little bit of seasoning in AAA, AA, and he should be good to go by the end of next year, you think? Bryce Miller really slots in well as that number 4 spot in terms of the playoffs or postseason if you get there. And I think a full season of Bryce makes this team look a lot better. And you kind of slot in, you say, hey, you can either add a much cheaper 5th starter, or you've still got the Emerson Hancock, Logan Evans combo that you could slot into that number 5 spot in the pitching rotation and be totally fine. I think Castillo is the more expendable contract. I would agree with you that it's the one we could more easily get rid of. I just think the Randy one should be considered purely because of what we have looking forward and what's available on the market, right? If the Mariners really want to get aggressive, they have more money than they've had in quite a while. They could go after a Kyle Tucker if they really want to. Like they could go a little deeper into their pockets and get a real guy there. And then I guess now is a time to talk about some of these third basemen. Obviously, we want to talk Josh Naylor, but that's something that will happen in the future. I guess everybody's talked Josh Naylor. We don't have to talk about it, but that's something that could happen this offseason. The guys that I want to talk about are these 2 Japanese prospects coming over. Munetaka Murakami, who is a 25-year-old third baseman and first baseman. He's basically played 6 or 7 years in Japanese pro leagues, and the last couple of seasons he's been really good. He's basically a kind of Geno hitter, but he's young and actually puts the ball in play a little bit more. He's got, the last couple seasons I'll read you 2021 to 2025. He had 39 home runs, 56 home runs, 31 home runs, 33 home runs, and 24 home runs, along with 112 RBIs, 134 RBIs, and then, good RBI counts the next couple of years. He's got a batting average hovering right around that like kind of 260 to 270 mark if you average out those years. And then he's, obviously a great slugging with those home runs, great OPS. So this is a guy that could slot in immediately, and third base is a position that the Mariners really don't have a prospect for, looking at their kind of system. You've got a Cole Young, who's going to be a second baseman, Colt Emerson, who's probably going to be JP's replacement. JP is probably going to be gone in the next year or two, I would think, just because of his age and his throwing arm and everything like that. So Colt Emerson's going to be in there. And then third base is kind of like the spot that's a question long-term for this team. And this is a guy who's 25. You could sign for a couple seasons, and it first of all, gets you that player that plays third base. Second of all, it gets the Mariners back in the Japanese market in a real way. Like, they really would love that. And so I think that's something that you could point to and say, hey, this is a guy who you could get. So there's him. This was Murakami. And then there's another guy from Japan, Kazuma Okamoto, who's a little older. He's 29. But he does the same stuff, plays third and first, and he's been playing in the league a little bit longer, and he's got such similar stats. He's just a little bit more been average focused over the last couple of years. I guess since 2023, I'll shorten it up a little bit, but he had 41 home runs, 27 home runs, and 15 home runs, but with batting averages of 278, 280, and 322. So he's hovering right around that 900 OPS in Japan, which will drop when you come over. But these guys are both, at the very least, short-term guys that you could expect to succeed in some way better than Ben Williamson. Like these are guys that are going to be better than Ben Williamson, especially if you think Williamson needs more time at the AAA level or AA level. Like, these are guys who could come in and produce at least, if not better, than Ben Williamson. And as the only third baseman in the system, he's been kind of lucky to get playing time as of right now. So we'll see what they do, but I really like looking at one of these guys. Does one of them pique your interest a little bit more?
I guess fairly equal for me. Maybe leaning on more experience would be a good thing in this situation. I do think, obviously, Japanese baseball is, experiencing kind of a second renaissance here in the 2020s in terms of their, pro level guys coming over. Obviously, you think Shohei and Yamamoto, but Seiya Suzuki has been really awesome for the Cubs, and he came over and was ready basically immediately. There have just been a lot of those types of examples, but at the same time, those guys do tend to be no-brainers. I remember every team in the MLB was making their Yamamoto pitch because everyone just knew he was going to be a stud. I'm not certain that these guys are the same caliber. With that being said, there's nothing but positive growth to be found at third base. Geno, love him to absolute death, but his numbers really died when he came to Seattle.
Yep.
And his defense doesn't leave anything to be missed necessarily with a replacement. So I think either one of those would be a very viable move to try to improve at third base, and also, I'm assuming, pretty financially reasonable compared to something like trying to re-sign Geno. Yeah.
I think the guy who would fit the ballpark more is probably Murakami, the lefty, but he's younger. He's probably going to they're probably both going to get young, shorter contracts, but I would expect the Okamoto to get this is the 29-year-old, to get a little bit longer of a contract just because he is 29. If he's going to come over and sign for a team, that he's going to want to be, making good enough money to stay. So that's my little bit of concern. I think Murakami could probably do a little bit of bet on himself type thing, take a shorter deal and try and prove it for a couple of years. I think he's almost a safer bet to come over as the prospect and just see if he can produce kind of thing, versus Okamoto has been very, very good for a long time, and people would expect him to, at the very least, produce at a decent level. So we'll see if we can get them, but I just wanted to shout those guys out because there are names that are going to be talked about here in the coming weeks. And as the Sound Up Seattle-based sports pod, we want to be on top of that for the Mariners here. So keep in touch.
100%.
We've already been talking for 25 minutes about the Mariners. Do you have anything else to really jump onto here, or should we keep it moving?
No, I think we got to keep it moving. It really was. It was such a blessed season. It's really hard to put it in the rear view and say goodbye. We'll obviously touch in over the course of the offseason. We'll have a pod as soon as Naylor gets re-signed, and he will get re-signed to celebrate that. But yeah, it was a great year. It ended tough, but I'm also really proud of this group getting to where they did, fighting to get where they did, and a lot to look forward to in the coming years. I really appreciate it. I guess last thing I have to say is ownership put out a full page ad in the Seattle Times, basically thanking the fans and kind of saying under their breath, "Wow, postseason revenue is pretty spectacular. Turns out investing in your team can actually pay off. You're not just setting the money on fire."
Whoa, man. Crazy.
I'm certain it paid off for them this year in a big way, and I hope they take that profit and reinvest in this team to be even better next year. I promise you, man, you've got at least 5 or 6 years of success before M's fans start getting tired of it and are not willing to pay these ridiculous playoff ticket prices. I spent way too much money on playoff tickets, and I have no regrets. So hope ownership takes that cue and continues to build, because there is room for growth on this roster. I think we're an awesome team, but I really do think we are, maybe a piece, maybe 2 pieces away for really competing for the top of the AL over the next 3 or 4 years. So let's get after it.
Yeah, this is that crest Jerry DiPoto's always been talking about. Now is the time.
Yeah.
Invest.
Yeah, ride the wave, baby. Ride the wave.
All right. Real quick, let's go to kind of the smattering of sports, and we'll jump into some college football. So last week, we didn't get to talk about it, but UW lost to Michigan, and that game was, I think, closer than it ended up being, but also it got pretty far apart because it was the first real Big Ten road game that this young UW group had to face, and they didn't necessarily live up to the task. Demond had a couple interceptions in that fourth quarter that were not that great, and it was just kind of a tough game overall. I think that Michigan defense really held us at the line of scrimmage. There's a loss of a couple linemen over the course of the season that's been a little tough, and you can really feel it. So that game was tough. And I guess, do you have anything to say about that one before we jump into the WSU one?
Yeah, just it was kind of fluky. Our defense actually played pretty well for almost 3 full quarters before Michigan was able to kind of open it up. But even them getting that 24 number is a little crooked because our offense just couldn't really generate anything, so they just had lots of opportunities.
Yep.
Disappointed in the offense. Obviously, that'll nix any playoff hopes. Now we're just hoping for competitive end of the season and some good, maybe a good bowl game. But yeah, just disappointing. I mean, we've scored under 38 3 times this year. We've scored under 24 twice. And both those games, Ohio State and Michigan, we scored 7 or less. So just 2 real offensive blips on what's been a pretty spectacular offensive season. Bummer that it had to come against those 2 teams. Obviously, you give the defenses credit, but we're capable of more than that. And we certainly saw that this last week against Illinois. Anything you want to say on Michigan before we talk positive here?
I think the big thing for that is the growing pains for Demond are kind of just showed. We talked about Ohio State and kind of their spy who they basically had on Demond the entire time, trying to prevent him from escaping out of the pocket. And their whole plan was just to make this guy throw on us. And he was able to do that, but just to less success. And I think that comes from just a talent deficit when it comes to if our line can really hold people, receivers will get open, and you just kind of slowly over these games whittled things down, and you saw that the line just never held up for the entirety of the game, and that was what caused these losses in these bigger games. So I think we'll see benefits to that going forward and improvements as we keep progressing. But I really like this UW team, and you did say we're out of the playoff hunt. If we can go undefeated the rest of the season and beat that Oregon team in the final game, that is Big Ten, edge of the playoffs caliber there. That's a 10 seed or something like that. So don't count us out just yet. We got to beat Oregon, who is a little bit flawed, but it was good to watch them smoke number 23 Illinois here, and we can get into that one now.
Yeah, it was fun, man. It was a lot of fun. It was offensively spectacular. I want to call out just in terms of game script is how similar it was to that Rutgers game. Both games started, offense was just electric in both games. We scored 38 against Rutgers, 42 against Illinois. But both games were competitive to start with, both teams Illinois and Rutgers both holding leads into the second quarter. But then starting from 2 minutes left in the second quarter onward in both games, we scored 4 touchdowns and allowed 1. So just really dominant. I know I have to tweak the numbers to get kind of an odd amount there, but for basically the second half of both those games, we went 8 touchdowns to 2, just complete, offensive dominance, and then defense getting the job done. So game script wise, it's beautiful. I love to see it. Keeps you entertained at the start, and then you get to pull away in the second half. That's how I like to watch Husky football. Demond was awesome, but in my mind, this one's going down as the Boston game.
Yeah.
He was spectacular.
Yeah, he even had the passing touchdown to Jonah Coleman on that trick play. That one was sick. But yeah, this was Jed Fish kind of at his finest. Like, let's let these guys cook, let this offense really do their thing, and you saw it there, man. Jonah Coleman, 14 carries, 75 yards, 1 touchdown. This is a guy who, if you don't have him like in your dynasty fantasy drafts, like on the board there, keep him in mind. Like, he's going to be one of the top running backs taken in this upcoming draft. He's a senior who's producing at a decent level in the Big Ten, and a better line is just going to help this guy even more. He's a solid runner, so keep him in mind moving forward as a guy who UW's going to keep trying to use and keep letting prove himself. But yeah, Denzel Boston, 10 receptions, 153 yards, a touchdown, a passing touchdown. And then you obviously had the 2 touchdowns to Desmond Roebuck, who continues to solidify himself as that really solid number 2. But just a great game overall. Basically hit everybody important for a passing touchdown. You had Boston, Roebuck with 2, Coleman received 1, and then Decker DeGraff, that tight end, with a touchdown as well. So just Damon spreading the love, and you could feel it, man. That was an electric game. I know everybody enjoyed that one that was there.
Yeah, tons of fun offensively. Yeah, Boston was finally putting up some numbers like I have him in college football 26. I'm always peppering him with the ball, but 153 yards on 10 receptions. I love to see that. He's going to be an NFL guy for sure. And then, yeah, Coleman's interesting, man, because the thing about him is he's a really good between the tackles runner. Certainly not top of the class in my mind in that regard, but he's an awesome pass catcher. He's way more. He kind of reminds me of like a James Cook type of player where. Yeah. What he can do between the tackles is impressive, but what's going to make him an NFL guy is his ability to handle receptions and, work out into space and make people miss in the open field. He's a in the flat dream for any quarterback.
He really reminds me of Kenneth Walker in that way. Like he's got a Kenneth Walker type build for sure.
That's a really good example. That's probably even better than Cook, because Cook was obviously so electric in college. But yeah, real Kenneth Walker vibes for him. A little Seattle to Seattle connection, but that duality, I think, is what's going to get him into the NFL.
Yeah. Other than that, UW has a bye this upcoming week, so not much to talk about there. They have, who do they play after this bye? I forget. Oh, it's Wisconsin. That's right. So that should be another
Purdue,
good game.
UCLA, Oregon. Yeah.
Gonna finish out the season strong. This is gonna be interesting because a lot of people have been talking about how UW should be in the top 25 at this point. 6-2, they've got basically better wins and better losses than like a team like Texas or I think the other big one that people were shouting out was an ACC team that I can't remember off the top of my head. But there's a couple teams that are in the top 25 that probably shouldn't be over Washington. So that's going to be an interesting discussion moving forward. I think even after this bye, we could see them jump into that top 25 conversation. So get looking ahead for that. Get excited. Other than that, WSU losing to Virginia was another close loss against a pretty good team, all things considered. That game was pretty exciting. Went down to the wire. I think they lost like 18-22. I don't have it pulled up right now. I'll pull it up here, but just a solid game. And then last week they handled Toledo in a pretty good way. So WSU's been just cruising along, been happy with what they've been able to do so far. Any thoughts?
Yeah, that Virginia loss was so tough, especially coming right off Ole Miss. Back-to-back games where they are so narrow to almost beat top 25 teams. That would have been so cool for all our Wazoo fans out there. But, yeah, they've been playing well. Nice to see them smack around Toledo a little bit. They're playing the Pac-12 Bowl here against Oregon State. You and I are going to be invested in that one for sure. It is funny. It speaks to their strength of schedule. I couldn't believe they played Ole Miss and Virginia back-to-back. And I was just looking at their schedule on ESPN. It says, next week versus OSU. And I'm like, we got Ohio State too? So I thought they were playing the number one team in the country. Instead, it is the lowly Beavers. So I think Wazoo fans can look forward to what is likely going to be an easy week for them.
Yeah, OSU has not looked very good, so I'm excited for them, and they should finish out the season with a few wins. They got OSU twice and Louisiana Tech and James Madison, so some easier scheduled games for Washington State as they come out of those two, kind of the gauntlet of their season with Ole Miss and Virginia. So they should finish out strong, get a bowl game, enjoy where they're coming with the Pac-12 kind of growing again these next couple of years. So that's really good for them. Yes. Other than that, I think that's it on college football. Do you want to touch on college basketball at all before we? College basketball kind of starts right as our next week's pod's coming out. So do you have anything to really rattle off before? We might even have Rosenberger on next week. That might be the move.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. We'll have to have Rosenberger on, our local Zag expert. We'll have him on to preview the Gonzaga season, and we'll talk UW as well. But I don't have anything huge to say. We'll talk about it next week. But some pretty awesome recruiting news coming out of Gonzaga. They've been just balling on the recruitment side of things. Not a lot of that will affect this year's team beyond what we've previously discussed. But yeah, a lot of expectations. A good old team coming in. Look out for the Zags, man. We'll talk UW. I have no idea what to expect from those guys.
UW's gonna be fun, man. They got two of the USC guards from last year, and one guy who's returning from a couple years ago who had left after Hopkins was not the best coach to him. So so I'm excited for people to come back to UW, and I think they should be relevant and maybe even a bubble team for the tournament this year. So that's gonna be exciting. Other than that, Kraken have started the season. They were 5-2-2 last time I looked. They might have played a game since then, but they've started off the season strong. Obviously, that second two there is overtime losses, so John loves those. But they do give us a point, which is good enough to get us near the top in terms of the Pacific Division. I think they're second or third right now since I last checked. So good things coming from the Kraken so far. That Sounders game. Do you want to touch on that Sounders game against Minnesota?
Kraken, man. These overtime losses. We're somehow second in our part of the Pacific, but it's mostly overtime losses. So I want to see them get into form a little bit. Sounders playoffs have started. We're matched up with Minnesota in the round of 16. Went to penalties in the first leg of this best of 3 round of 16 and lost 3-2 to Minnesota. So tough to go down like that. I do think it is just kind of tough because with a team like Seattle that is so strong defensively, these round of 16 playoff rules for overtime really hurt us.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't go to extra time. It just goes immediately to a shootout. And yeah, I just think this team needs time to develop offense and, hit some goals. Taking it to PKs as soon as 90 hits does not favor this team at all. Bummer to give up that one even after the great defensive play, but got to rally and try to win these next 2.
Yeah. Yep. I think this team is built for the playoffs still. Like we can expect them to succeed. It's just a question of if they will. Like it's kind of their defense is, like you said, it's built for kind of these moments. They've really been allowing 0 to 1 goals per game over the last pretty long stretch. So it's can this offense round into form here, and they really hadn't done much besides scoring like 1 or 2 goals over the last month or so. So I haven't really been loving how this offense has performed. They haven't been really striking the ball well. But other than that, if they can get hot at any moment here, like this series, like this 3-game set, if they can win these next 2 convincingly, I think that will give them the spark that they would need to kind of keep pushing through these MLS playoffs. So we'll see what happens there, but keep an eye on them. They've got their next game. I believe it's Monday against Minnesota. So keep your eyes on them.
45 tip. Must have it. Must generate a goal in regular time. That's my call.
It's all we need. 1 goal and we'll win that game. Other than that, are you ready to jump into Seahawks, man?
Let's do it. I've been waiting.
Okay. So again, lucky for us, they had a bye week last week, so we didn't really have to worry about it. But before they had that bye, they played the Texans in week 7, and that was, in my opinion, probably the sloppiest win that the Seahawks have had in years. Like they had so many turnovers. The Texans defense played really well, and yet I think was it 27-19. I think they won like pretty handily. So it just was weird, like how good they were able to play against a really stout Texans team that feels like they're going to kind of be on the rise as this season goes along. And I'm expecting this Texans team to be good over the next stretch because they kind of need to crawl back into that, maybe get that 7 spot in the AFC. That's what they're hoping for. But it's a quite the interesting game there. Do you have any thoughts coming out of that one?
Well, yeah, that one was brutal. I can't believe we won that game after losing the turnover battle so brutally. 4-1 turnover differential for the Texans. But we were able to pull it out 27-19. A shout out to Darnold. He had, yeah, one of his rough games at Seahawk, throwing a pick and, having the fumble.
Yep.
Not super efficient passing the ball downfield either. But Texans defense is really tough, and we knew that. So, just getting enough done offensively, JSN being a stud once again, and then enough going on the ground that we were able to hold off this Texans team. But you can't expect many of those. So I will say, I guess it's encouraging that you can turn the ball over 4 times, still generate 27 points of offense in a game. That's pretty impressive work by the Hawks.
Yeah, and it was just kind of a weird thing where it felt like we should be doing more. The fact that we were able to generate 4 touchdowns is just like, it felt like that was. No, we didn't generate 4 touchdowns. We generated 3 touchdowns. I'm lying to myself. Because we had the 2 field goals, but those 3 touchdowns, like, even in that case, like, that should be, the turnover battle should be enough for us to have lost that game, and for us to have held the Texans to 19 in that case, like where we had turned it over that many times. That just shows how good our defense has been too. Like, our defense is definitely a top 5 defense in the league, if not like top 3. I'd have to look at our DVOA to really think about the entirety of the league and how we compare. But our defense is really looking nice, and we've been basically without Devin Witherspoon for most of this season. And Byron Murphy continues to be good. Ernest Jones continues to be electric every time he can get there. And then DeMarcus Lawrence has been kind of a sneaky acquisition from the Cowboys that I've really been enjoying. So just wanted to shout him out. Obviously, what's his name? Leonard Williams didn't have a great game, but interesting. I just wanted to shout out this fact. JSN had 2 tackles. That's just a lovely thing to note. So
crazy.
Just some fun stuff there, but excited for this upcoming week against the Commanders. Do you got anything else to say about this Texans team? God, I just realized CJ Stroud threw the ball 49 times. Like, that's insane.
We were leading the whole time. Their running game trash. That's not even that surprising. That's how the Texans have to win, is by hucking the ball. Not a lot to say about that game. Upcoming against the Commanders should be fun. Jaden Daniels is looking like he'll be back, so this 3-5 Commanders team is stronger than that record would indicate. They have not had much time this season where they can field a fully healthy team, but we'll see how they're able to put it together. I do think the Hawks are currently favored by 3 or so, and that's pretty generous to this Commanders team that's been pretty hit or miss. The Hawks have been, obviously Mariota played last week and they got stomped, but this Hawks team has been pretty dominant. And again, coming off a bye, prep for this Commanders team, I'm sure they were practicing it all week with Jane Daniels in mind and just knowing that it'd be gravy if Mariota was lining up out there. But they'll be ready for him. And coming off a bye week with their last win being a 8-point win in a game where they committed 4 turnovers, I don't know how this couldn't go better than that. I think Hawks will win comfortably. They're in position to really put themselves up in the top of that NFC conversation with the likes of the Rams and the Eagles and whoever else you want to consider of that caliber.
Yeah, I would agree. I think looking at this Commanders team, like every game that they play, they just look like they're aging 2 years. Like, it's kind of insane how old they feel, especially when Daniels isn't playing. So the fact that he is playing is really nice for them. McLaurin's going to be out for this game, so that is something that is going for a benefit for the Seahawks there. But I would expect us to win the battle of just like kind of ball control. I feel like we're going to win this game in the trenches, moving the line. And as this season's gone along, I will say the line has just looked better and better. Like our rushing game has been able to improve, week by week. Every single time I feel like this line kind of takes a step back, they kind of reprove it to me. And you could feel it in that first week 49ers game, like the Kubiak zone line scheme was really not working too well. And I think just given the reps, given the time, it's kind of like Mike McDonald's defense. Like, over the season, this team has just like really solidified how it's been playing, and we're halfway through. So I'm excited to see where they can go here. They've got a really big matchup in a few weeks against the Rams. That's kind of a battle of the division opponent here that's going to be fighting for that top spot. But I think this Commanders team, it is in Washington, so that's a little bit scary there. But other than that, like, I think they should handle this team pretty well. They don't really even have a good running back, and their one receiver is Deebo Samuel. So I'm not too worried about it.
And this, I'll just say schedule for the rest of the season looking pretty good for the Hawks. They've got obviously both Rams games left are going to be really big, and then they do play the best team in the NFL, the Indianapolis Colts. On
Oh, I thought you
December
were going to say the
14th.
Tennessee Titans after that, you know?
No, no. But besides those three good teams, that Panthers beat up Niners, questionable Falcons beat up Vikings, crappy Titans beat up Cardinals. So not a whole lot of dominant teams on the slate. Just got to take care of business here, and then, yeah, 3 competitive games left. I think they should be in a really good position here.
Yeah, I agree. I want to look at the 49ers schedule, to be honest, because everybody was talking about how their schedule was like the easiest schedule in football for this season. And now it's just not looking as easy, right? They're like comparatively to the Seahawks, they've got a game against the Giants upcoming this weekend, which is looking a little easier now that Scadabo's gone, but basically playing all the same teams, the Browns, the Colts, the Bears. Like, these are all teams that if you were looking at our schedule versus the Niners schedule, they're basically the same, and everybody was so in on the 49ers. Like, it's almost surprising that people weren't as in on the Seahawks, especially given just the time that it takes for this Mike McDonald defense and what we would have expected from the zone blocking scheme to show up. It's like this Seahawks team is just going to get better and better, and this Niners team, everybody knows they get injured every single year, and it's just week by week that war of attrition really weighs on them. So I'm really excited to see how this season finishes out for the Seahawks versus 49ers. Just feels good for them to lose, you know?
Yeah, always. And, it's funny, man. Things are so locked in now. It's funny looking back to the beginning of this season and all the question marks hanging over this team. Could JSN really be a number 1 guy for a full season? Yes, with an exclamation point. Is Sam Darnold a better quarterback than Geno Smith? People were leaning no on that question before the season started. That is an emphatic triple underlined yes. He's been so good. And Geno's also been crumbling before our eyes, which you hate to see, but it does make you feel great. Can you imagine? We paid Darnold less and got a pick.
It's
Can you imagine
crazy.
if we gave Geno that money?
It's crazy. He does get to get Tyler Lockett back, which, good for him, man. Good for that Raiders team. Really reuniting the 2017 Seattle Seahawks. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I saw a joke about them re-signing Cam Chancellor. So yeah, the Raiders are just trying to rebuild it over there. Yeah, it is fun. That's the most vindicating one, man, is you and I were standing on Darnold Island at the beginning of this year.
Nobody was on Darnold Island, man. We were alone on that island.
Yeah, everybody was, why would you trade Geno? Why do you want this Darnold guy? And we're like, why don't you give it a minute? And we were 100% right about that. So in hindsight, it's easy to see why weren't more people in on the Hawks, but there were some big question marks, just not anymore.
I'm going to make just one of those TikTok edits of our takes of just like us being right about every single thing that had to do with this offseason with regards to like the 49ers not doing enough and the Rams being questionable but still good depending on Matthew Stafford. And it's like, we were so right this offseason. I feel so much better about our pod.
Agreed.
Okay, now that we are done talking about our own takes, do you have anything else to say about this Seahawks team before we jump into some value dogs?
Nope. Good schedule coming up. Take care of the Commanders.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, for those of you that are new here, we at Sound Up Seattle every week give 3 underdog picks that we think will cover against the spread because statistically over the last decade plus, underdogs have done better against the spread than favorites. This season has been quite the exception. Underdogs as of right now are 51, 69, and 1 against the spread, giving them a 42.5% coverage rate, which has not been very good. John and I, last time we did this was 2 weeks ago. We didn't do last week because we missed that pod, and that was probably the best week to skip because, my God, the favorites cream the underdogs. We went 1-2 2 weeks ago, and so overall on the season, we've had the exact same record each week. We've both been 10 and 11 over the course of the season. Last time we were 1-2. So other than that, John, home dogs have gone 22 and 28. They've gone 44%, so they're a little bit better, but still not to the 50% mark that we would like to see. And away dogs are 29, 41, and 1, covering 41.4% of the time. Do you want to go first? Or do you want me to go first?
I'll give you this one. I just want to shout us out. Obviously, 2 weeks ago, super glad to miss last week, but 2 weeks ago, we shared 2 picks, and our only correct pick was one we shared. It was by Indianapolis Colts, plus 1.5. That is the last time all season we're getting the Colts plus money. Yep. I'm calling that one right. So, glad we took advantage of that one while we could. Who are you taking this week?
Yeah, I am going to start with a team that I think I go back to at least 10 times a year. We've done this for 3 years now, and it feels like I use them 10 times a year, and that is the Carolina Panthers plus 13.5 at Green Bay. For whatever reason, Green Bay is considered like the top echelon of the NFC right now. And I don't think they're that good. I think they're probably in that like second tier where it's like the Lions and like maybe the Eagles, but the Eagles haven't really been that great as well. It's like Lions, Eagles, Bucks, and then you've got like Seahawks, Rams, Packers, like that kind of conglomerate right there of 6 teams. Like that feels like the top tier of the NFC. But the Packers are kind of on the edge for me still, and 13.5 points is a touchdown and 2 field goals that you get to cover. And the Panthers are just trying to come back after that blowout against the Bills. I think they're losing a lot of points, or they're getting a lot of points here because people want you to take, or the betting markets want you to take them, or want you to take the Green Bay after that smackdown. But 13.5 points is just so much. And the Panthers have shown that they've got a competent enough offense under Bryce Young, who's may or may not play, but still I think they'll be good enough to score 14 points, and the Packers have to score 28 to beat them in that or to cover in that sense. I think it's going to be a closer game than that. So 13.5 feels good.
Yeah, them and the Saints both getting almost 2 touchdowns worth of points is very tempting. I respect this is the purpose. I'm not taking it, but getting a team that's almost 2 touchdown underdogs, it's not the point. The Packers are almost definitely going to win this game. Heck, the Packers could very easily be up 21 going into the fourth quarter, but then when you're in that situation, the lead team takes their foot off the gas.
Jordan Love comes out of the game 2.5 quarters in. That's what's going to happen here.
Yeah. Garbage time is called garbage time for a reason. What happens there is garbage. But what can happen there is a ruined line. And I do believe in the Panthers' ability to do that. So I'm going to let you have that one. And instead, I'm going to take a team that I like a lot right now. And that is the Dolphins plus 7.5 against the Ravens. Ravens had a nice win last week against the Bears, but the Bears just played kind of bad, and the Ravens got some positive regression from some guys. Dolphins looked really good last week, and this is something that's true about this Dolphins team. When they are at home, or at least in the South, where it is warm and humid, they are very good at football. When they're on the road, they suck. This week, they are in Miami. Ravens coming to them. They're getting more than a touchdown, plus 7.5. And I just think the way their offense looked last week, that they can play with anybody. The Ravens had one good defensive week, and it was this last week against the Bears. Does that mean I think suddenly the Ravens defense is not incredibly mid? No, I think they are incredibly mid. I think the Dolphins are going to score a lot of points, and the fact that they can have more than a touchdown of leeway is more than enough for me.
Yeah, I like this line. I worry that it's kind of nut up or shut up time for the Ravens, and they're just trying to cream every single team. And it's a question of if Lamar's playing. I think if Lamar's playing, this line makes a little bit more sense. But if you've got Tyler Huntley starting again, like you should grab this. And I know the injury report, I think, just came out right before we were starting, so I haven't had a full look at that yet. But like I said, if Lamar's starting, this line makes a little bit more sense. But I still think you're right. Even if he is, like, that's a whole touchdown. And they scored 34 points against the Falcons last week, but it was still, 34 points. This team was able to produce offense. Like, we've been worried about that since Tyreek Hill went down, and they've kind of figured out, like, hey, Achan's still good. You've got Jalen Waddle, who could be a wide receiver 1 on most teams. It's like they've got weapons. They just need to learn how to use them. And McDaniel is coaching for his life. Tua is playing for his coach's life. Like, all of these things lead to...
He's playing for his life, dude. Nobody believes in Tua right now. He needs this.
That's true. He's going to make money either way, though. He's set for life. He doesn't need to worry. But yeah, I think this 7.5 line is pretty good. So I'm with you on that one, but I wanted to let you have it as well. So with my second pick, I am going to go with one that is kind of going against the grain, I feel like, from where people think that this team is at after last week as well. The Falcons, this is a gamble on Michael Penix Jr. playing. Because the Falcons being plus 5.5 at the Patriots, this is a Patriots team that is susceptible to passing offense, like an air raid offense kind of style. And the Falcons can really capitalize on this if Michael Penix Jr. is playing. If Kirk Cousins is playing, I don't want anything to do with this line. I think the Falcons are going to score 6 points again. But I believe in Penix, and this is a full take on that. I think the Falcons just threw away last week, and they're ready to lock back in. Drake London will play this week. All these good things can happen. And again, 5.5 points, that's a lot of points. You'll see that from my lines this week. I went for a little bit bigger of a line and less underdogs winning outright. So that is one that I wanted to grab in that Falcons plus 5.5.
Yep, I think that's a good one. This is, Falcons have been so off for so on. They're like a light switch.
Yep.
So it's a little bit of a 50-50, but if they're on, then this is a no-brainer. If they're on, I think they'll beat the Pats. So getting 5.5 points is just good value. Always garbage time potential, and people are all in on the Pats. They're good. They have not played anybody. So the idea that I think they're getting a little too much love. So 5.5 points, I appreciate it. My last two picks this week are both pretty soft. Got to be honest, I'm not really proud of them. We're here to take big point values. I appreciate that about you, Tyler. You're practicing what we're here to do, but I got to get above 500, so I got to make some business here. And what I did is I took two teams that I think are just the better team, and they're somehow getting. My first one, I'm taking the Bills plus 1.5 against the Kansas City Chiefs. This is going to be a great game. We always love Bills Chiefs. These are the two of the best teams in the AFC. They're both playing very well this year. They both played very well last week. Two MVP candidates at quarterback. Here I'm just leaning on the fact that the Bills are getting the points. And historically, Bills win in the regular season, and then Chiefs win in the playoffs. If this was the playoffs, I would not be taking this bet. But the Bills have won, I think, their last 2 or 3 matchups with Kansas City in the regular season. So I just think they kind of have their regular season number. I expect one more.
I think my problem with this, and the other side of this is 1.5 is basically just a pick 'em. Like, unless like you're getting a point, you're basically just taking the underdog though, because they're the underdog. I feel like if the Chiefs were plus 1.5, you probably would have taken the Chiefs plus 1.5. And the thing that scared me is the more I look at this Chiefs offense, the more they look really, really potent against a Bills defense that looks a little bit flawed. And I think the weapons for Patrick Mahomes have just, like, over the course of the season gotten a lot better, and Josh Allen has just never had any weapons to begin with. So I worry that this Chiefs offense is going to be pretty good. I think this is going to be an electric game. I think both these teams are going to score 35 points. But I worry that the Chiefs, it's in Arrowhead. I think the Chiefs are going to show up. They also need this a lot more than the Bills do. The Bills are 5-2, and I think that they kind of know that they need this for the seeding. Like, the Bills need this for seeding because the Patriots have such an easy schedule. But the Chiefs are 4-3. Like, if they lose this game, they're 4-4. Like, yeah, they're the Chiefs. They'll probably come back, but there's a worry that the Broncos or the Chargers are going to just overshadow them, and they'll get into that, like, number 7 spot, and it's really hard to claw your way out of there. So I think the Chiefs need this more, which is why I stayed away. But I get where you're coming from. I just wanted to give that information.
100%. Last two things on that. One, you hit the nail on the head. With the Patriots having the schedule they do, the Bills need to prioritize every single game. So I do think they will be equally motivated. And just second thing, clarification. It's not an Arrowhead. It's at Buffalo.
Oh, I thought it was an Arrowhead. Okay.
Yeah, they're going to get a cold game up there in upstate.
They basically have the same place. It would have been cold in Arrowhead too, for sure.
That's true, but colder up north there, and I do think that'll play. Great fans there too. So one more reason to pick the Bills.
Yep. All right, with my last one, I don't love this line, but I love the matchup, and it's because it's, I think, the only game this week that has an in-division matchup, and that is the Vikings plus 8.5 against the Lions. Like I said, the only game I believe that has, it's two NFC North teams. It's the in-division matchup, and I feel like division matchups, you basically need to assume that it's going to be way closer than the line gives it credit for. I almost always want to take the underdog if the line gives you more than a touchdown in any sort of in-division matchup, just because it feels like they always play each other a little harder. So if you get 8.5 points, I think J.J. McCarthy's coming back this week. This is kind of his, I've said it once this pod, I'll say it again, his nut up or shut up moment when it comes to, like, can he run an offense in the NFL? Because Carson Wentz cannot anymore because his body is giving way. So we will see what happens with J.J. McCarthy. But this is like, he needs to win, he needs to at least show up in this game. Otherwise, the Vikings fans will be a little distraught. And, Jefferson, if it goes so far south, Jefferson's going to request a trade. Addison's going to be upset. Like, this entire Vikings offense is built around a rookie QB that can't really perform if it goes wrong. And I think they just have to cover this spread. They have to make this game at least close.
Yeah, the division aspect to it is, I think, your best argument. My real concern here is just that J.J. McCarthy has not been hurt. He's definitely just got benched because he was sucking, and he's only coming back because Carson Wentz's arm is literally falling off his body, just hanging in a dislocated socket, and they have no other option but to put J.J. back in. So that's a concern for me. I will not say I'm the biggest McCarthy believer. But yeah, it's time to show up, and 8.5 points is a lot of points. That's a very good argument.
I had to work through both aspects of my own argument before I ended up with the decision. So I wanted everybody to work through that with me.
All right, with my last pick of the week, I'm doing the same thing. I'm taking the Broncos plus 1.5 against the Houston Texans. I wish this line made more sense to me. These lines always concern me, the ones where I just think they're really obvious, but maybe people are just saying, oh, the Texans defense is so good, it's really going to slow the Broncos offense down, and the Texans offense is so good with CJ that they're kind of defense proof. The one big problem with that is the Texans offensive line sucks. It still sucks. It sucked every week this season. Even if they've played some teams with bad pass rushes, that does not mean that their offensive line doesn't suck. Now, this Broncos team has the most sacks in the NFL. Nobody gets to the quarterback more effectively than this defensive line group. How those two things are not going to conspire to lead to a Broncos beatdown, I just don't know. So this one seems obvious to me. I don't really get it. But, baby, I'm just not going to fight this one. Give me the Broncos.
Yeah, don't fight it. The only reason I'm fighting it is because it feels too obvious. I agree with you. It feels too obvious to pick.
What does Vegas know?
They know that Bo Nix is going to sit out this game with a high ankle sprain.
That might be better for this Broncos team.
Who knows, man? But what I really like, I'm to the point where I'm not even starting Nico Collins for this Texans team, and I have him in like 2 or 3 leagues. So I don't trust this Texans team at all. But the 1.5 at home in a game where they basically need to go all out, play, and really go for the win if they're going to come back, because the Jags are likely going to beat the Raiders. Like the Texans, if they're going to make that 7 seed in the AFC, they're going to need to win this one. Like they need to win as many games as they can because they let themselves slip to 2-4 at one point. So now they're trying to like claw their way back out. And this is the game that like, if they can steal this, they keep what it does for the NFL. This is my conspiracy hat. We're putting that on. What it does for the NFL is it keeps the Broncos within range of the Chiefs if the Chiefs are going to lose this game. And so if the Broncos get to 7-2 and the Chiefs are 4-4, like the Chiefs are not going to win the AFC West. And so that's, I think, where my head's at is like the Texans have to win this game. Like that's where my head's at with regards to the NFL conspiring to make the Chiefs competitive towards the end of the season and make their games more interesting. That's what's going on. So if you're with that, don't bet on this plus 1.5 line. But also if you like value, take the Broncos.
Bro, it's so hard to argue with you there. Taylor Swift made the call. This one's all but wrapped. But it doesn't make sense to not pick them on paper. I just got to trust paper this time.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Broncos country, baby. Let's ride.
I support you on that one. All right, man. We potted for an entire hour as we always do. Anything to say before we hop off?
Week out of practice, man. I'm fatigued. I need to rest up. I can't jump into an hour pod after a week off.
I'm tired here, man. I didn't go to the bathroom before this. I was not prepared at all.
It's a disaster down there.
I had my bowl of Smart Pop just locked and loaded, and I was like, I can't be crunching popcorn on the pod. I had to finish it. All right. Well, for John Carey, I'm Tyler Carey. This has been the Sound Up Seattle pod. If you enjoyed us on YouTube, you can drop a subscription or follow us as well on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts there. If you're listening on your podcast, like I said at the beginning, check us out on YouTube. We're live there. We can have discussions during the pod if you guys are in here questioning our takes or anything like that. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Sound Up Seattle, all lowercase, all one word. You can email us questions, comments, concerns, beratements about John's picks in value dogs at soundupseattle@gmail.com. You can find me, Tyler, at TyCart50, everywhere it's important, and you can find John.
What am I playing these days? Playing Knights of the Old Republic 2. I finished the first one and maybe I want to play the second one. So just, reliving the glory days.
Wow.
Gotta miss BioWare.
That 2-week time change. You finished Knights of the Old Republic 1 and now you're on the second one. Those 2 weeks, man, really flew by.
Couldn't play in the field. I was itching.
All right. With all that being said, I'm going to hit it with a go Dogs, baby. Let's go, Huskies. Even though they have a bye week.
Go Dogs this
they have
week.
a bye week. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I want them to succeed. We need to get them their early go Dogs.